Have you ever wondered what happens when you quit your job as a Lego designer? Some designers may turn to making videos, some may go to other toy companies and start designing there. Or, in ex-designer James May's case, you end up doing both. Pantasy have just released a rotary phone as part of their retro collection that was actually designed by James May, who you may remember from quite a few of the LEGO Ideas sets, including the BTS set, the Polaroid camera, the Hocus Pocus house, and the typewriter. Out of the few sets of his that I've built, I really enjoyed the techniques and the functionality that he ended up putting into those sets, and this set in particular reminds me a lot of his work on the Polaroid camera and the typewriter, being that all three of these sets are buildable objects. So with all this in mind, I had pretty high hopes for this Pantasy set. Now, this isn't my first rodeo when it comes to Pantasy. I have actually built a handful of their sets before, with the most notable being the Sherlock Holmes modular building, which I absolutely loved, and I really enjoyed their brick quality as well as the way that it just snaps together in general. However, their human style figures leave something to be desired to me. So thankfully, because this is a buildable object, this set has none, so we're already off to a good start, and I have really high hopes for this set. A couple of things to note though with this set straight off the bat is that all of the gold pieces besides the gears are coated in this really nice gold finish that reminds me a lot of the Infinity Gauntlet set, and I absolutely love how it looks, especially with these larger golden domes at the bottom to represent the bells. There are also a couple of elements in this set that don't typically fall in the Pantasy brick range, including some rubber bands, these little feet at the very bottom so that the set doesn't slide around, but most importantly, these two acrylic discs. Both of these two acrylic elements are packaged separately and have been laser engraved, so all of the numbers that you see here on the dial aren't printed, which is really good from a longevity point of view, and I also think makes this set stand out to me. Now, if you take a close look at my dial, unfortunately, I feel like the alignment for mine is a little bit off, especially when it kind of gets to the numbers 6, 5, and all the way to 1. The bottom ones fit perfectly within that circle, and I thought maybe it's something to do with the alignment of how I built it, although I do think it's just like a tiny little fraction off. It's a little disappointing, but nothing to be super concerned about, and overall, I think these two pieces work really well together, and the gold one really benefits from being acrylic here since they've got this really nice, shiny, glittery kind of pattern baked into it, and that's not something that I believe you would be able to achieve if you did injection molding. And like all of James May's sets, there is also a lot of functionality built into this set with a couple of play features, despite this being a buildable object. But one thing I wanted to highlight, which is the case with all Pantasy products, is the fact that the instructions outline the specific length of the brick in this tiny little bubble, which is a feature that I absolutely love, because so often when building, I find myself counting the amount of studs on an instruction manual, especially when it comes to longer pieces. And I know that my mum has also done the same, so having this feature printed in the instructions makes building way easier. But as with any set, there are also a couple of cons when it comes to this set. Now, something that I noticed, and I feel like is actually an instructions error, comes along with step 135, which is this little top gold section here. They tell you to use a bunch of snot bricks and place them on their side. However, by doing that, it clashes on the few exposed studs that there are on the top, meaning that the pieces can't perfectly sit flat. So I ended up rotating mine slightly in order to get it to work, which, I mean, it still looks fine. All of the pieces still connected perfectly fine, but that is something that I noted when building. And then lastly is how all of the functional and technic elements interact with each other. In often cases, not just with this set, but also with the Sherlock Holmes set, I found the pieces to really push and have a lot of friction when attaching them, which made a couple of features really difficult to build, most notably the little bell feature at the very bottom of this set. It was a real pain to get it on. I feel like I was pushing elements against tables in order for them to slide in properly, and I'm not necessarily sure why, if it's a plastic issue or just a molding issue in general, but that has been a consistent complaint that I have had with the Pantasy sets, and it's definitely not that bad with all of the functional elements. However, there are a couple of the smaller pins specifically that I really struggled to get into certain pieces. So with all that out the way, let's talk about the build experience. This one in particular, it reminded me a lot more of a Lego set than I feel like the Sherlock Holmes Pantasy set did, and I do put a large portion of that coming from the fact that this was designed by an ex-Lego designer. The process felt very familiar to me and was really easy to follow along with, and even when it comes to some of the techniques used, you could tell that this was done by someone who has had a lot of experience building with bricks before. And as a customer of these brands, that is really, really exciting to me, because I think competition is such a good thing, and with the quality of Pantasy Pantasy's products being the way it is, it makes me really excited to see what else could come out in the future. James May's previous experience building the Lego typewriter as well as the Polaroid camera really shine here just in the functional elements of this set, especially when it comes to the rotary dial. Now this is definitely something I feel like you would want to pay close attention to when building, because the first time I definitely twisted the rubber band the wrong way and the feature did not work as expected, so do be careful when installing that. But when it does work correctly, it works flawlessly. You can also crank the dial on the side, which will activate this little swinging pendulum at the very bottom and make the bells ring. And then last but certainly not least is probably one of my favorite ones, and it is this whole bouncing feature when you pick up and hang up the phone. It's not a major movement, but it is so simple and so satisfying to do every time you pick up the phone to kind of see how this set reacts. And it does feel very authentic to what I imagine a rotary phone to be like. I mean, I'm 25 years old. I've never really used one or seen one in person, but it kind of reminds me of ones that I've seen in various movies and TV, and that makes me really happy. And after recently building a lot of F1 cars, I was really happy to see that this set had no stickers included and that every single element in this is printed. Now with some of these, you'll actually find that they are kind of pieced together when you open up this set. And at first I thought this was a packaging mistake. However, I then reread the instructions and it turns out all of these printed pieces are grouped together on purpose to make sure that you have the perfect pattern alignment when assembling this product, which I actually think is a pretty good feature. It's just something that I was definitely not used to, so I did not pick up on it at first. In my opinion, it is really cool to see Pantasy teaming up with an ex-Lego designer, and I feel like it unlocks a whole new level of potential when it comes to competition for Lego. Now, James May also actually reviewed one of the other Pantasy sets, which is a retro computer, and I found that video really interesting to watch and listen to and kind of see how a ex-Lego designer looks at other products and some of the things that they've noticed when it comes to the design and the packaging and the instructions. So I will leave that link to the end of the video if you want to check it out. But otherwise, I'll leave Pantasy's website linked down in the description below so you can check out this model and some of the other sets that they've got on offer, as their range over the last year has increased significantly, which is really awesome to see. And thank you, of course, again to Pantasy for sponsoring this video, as well as sending me this set, as it's been really fun to try out and see what the future of James May's career has got in store as a toy designer. But if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up, consider subscribing to my channel down below, and until next time, I'll see you later.